ever get that feeling with a book? Like, just by looking at it, you know it's got some serious ideas inside. Maybe even ideas that could, like, totally change how you see the world.
Yeah, some books just have that aura around them, you know?
Definitely. And today, we're diving into one of those. The Corpus Hermeticum, the Divine Dialogues of Hermes Trismegistus. It's a text that has fascinated and honestly sometimes intimidated people for centuries.
It is. And what's really cool is that even though it's ancient, it combines philosophy, spirituality, and cosmology in a way that's still relevant today.
Right. And that's what we're going to explore in this deep dive. We're going to get to the core of the Corpus Hermeticum without getting bogged down in too much academic jargon.
Absolutely. We want to make this accessible to everyone.
For sure. So we'll be using G.R.S. Mead's translation of the Corpus Hermeticum as our main source. And we'll also be referencing John Michael Greer's introduction for some historical context.
Yeah, because the story of how this collection came together is pretty interesting.
It is. It was probably compiled in Byzantine times, but then it resurfaced in Renaissance Florence and caused quite a stir.
Like Lorenzo de' Medici himself commissioned Marsilio Ficino to translate it, even before he translated Plato.
That's wild. And then in the next century and a half, it was reprinted countless times.
Which just tells you something about the impact it had.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And we should mention the Perfect Sermon, or Asclepius, too. It's included in the Corpus Hermeticum, but it has a unique history.
Yeah, it came to us through an ancient Latin translation that's attributed to Lucius Apuleius.
The guy who wrote The Golden Ass?
Yep, that's him. And Augustine even mentions it in his writings.
Wow, so these dialogues have been through a lot to get to us.
They have.
So our mission today is to unpack the key concepts of the Corpus Hermeticum. We're talking about God, the cosmos, humanity's place in it, and the path to knowledge.
Sounds like a plan.
All right, let's jump right in. Let's start with their ideas about God.
Okay, one of the first things that jumps out at you is this statement. The greatest ill among men is ignorance of God.
That's a bold statement.
It is, and it sets the stage for everything else in the Corpus Hermeticum. They present God as Father and the Good, and they emphasize that these aren't just titles, but fundamental aspects of his being.
So it's not like God just happens to be good, but that goodness is inherent to his nature.
Exactly. And they go on to say that God is the cause of mind, spirit, and light, but he isn't those things himself.
That's interesting. So he's the source of those things, but transcends them as well.
Precisely. He's described as the one and only one, from whom the first one, which is mind, comes forth.
Okay, so mind is like the first emanation from God.
Right, and here's where it gets really mind-bending. God is both unmanifest and most manifest at the same time.
Wait, unmanifest, what does that mean?
Unmanifest means he's beyond our senses, beyond our direct perception. We can't see or touch God in the conventional sense.
Oh, I see. But how is he most manifest then?
Well, we can perceive him through thought, and we can see his handiwork in the order and beauty of creation.
So it's like you can't see the composer, but you can hear the symphony.
Exactly. That's a great analogy. And they even speak of God's body as being the creation of all things.
So the entire universe is, in a way, an expression of God.
Yes, that's the idea. And they say that God's only passion is goodness.
And from that goodness, everything else flows.
That's right. His goodness is the source of his creative power.
Wow, that's powerful stuff.
It is.
All right, so let's move on to their cosmology, their creation story.
Okay, so according to the Corpus Hermeticum, creation begins with mind, which is God bringing forth another mind. This second mind is often called the formative mind, or the demiurge.
The demiurge, isn't that a term used in other traditions too?
Yeah, it is. It's often used to describe a kind of divine craftsman, the entity that shapes the universe.
I see. So the demiurge takes the blueprint from God and starts building the cosmos.
Right, and the demiurge creates 7 rulers, or archons, who govern the universe.
And these archons are associated with the planets, right?
Yeah, that's right. And they have a dual role. They maintain cosmic harmony, but they also contribute to humanity's tendency towards evil.
Wait, so they're not purely benevolent?
No, it's more complicated than that. They're both good and bad, or maybe it's better to say that they represent both order and chaos.
Interesting. So they're like those planetary influences we see in astrology and other ancient systems.
Yeah, there are definitely some parallels there. And it also reminds me of Gnostic ideas about imperfect creators.
Okay, so after the archons are created, what happens next?
Well, God's reason, or logos, descends into nature.
So logos is like the principle of order and intelligence.
Exactly. And nature at this point is just pure potentiality. It's like a blank canvas.
And logos infuses nature with order and meaning.
That's right. But in doing so, it leaves matter itself reasonless.
So matter has the potential to be shaped by logos, but it doesn't have any inherent intelligence of its own.
Right. And then we get to the creation of humanity.
Ah, the main event.
Right. So the All-Father mind creates humanity. And get this, humanity is described as being co-equal to God.
Co-equal. Wow, that's a pretty high status from the get-go.
It is. And humanity is also said to be loved for its beauty as the image of the Sire.
The sire being God, I presume.
Yes. And humanity is given all of God's creation.
So we're given dominion over the whole world.
That's right. And seeing what the Demiurge had created, humanity also desired to create.
So we inherited that creative urge from God.
Yes. And this desire to create received the Father's blessing.
Okay, but then what happens? Because I know things don't stay idyllic forever.
You're right. According to the text, humanity tries to break right through the boundary of their spheres.
What does that mean? Like, overreach our limits?
Yeah, I think it suggests a desire to transcend the boundaries of the created order, to reach for something beyond what was intended.
And how does nature react to this?
Nature, upon seeing God's fair form reflected in humanity, is filled with love.
So nature is attracted to humanity's divine potential.
Exactly. And this leads to an intermingling of humanity and nature.
Which results in our dual nature, right? We have a mortal body, but an immortal soul.
That's right. We become both earthly and divine.
But this also means we're subject to fate, even though we were originally above the harmony of the spheres.
Exactly. We retain our connection to the divine, but we also become entangled with the material world.
It's a bit of a mixed bag then, huh?
Yeah, it is.
So where does the concept of eon fit into all of this?
Okay, so eon is basically everlastingness. It's the realm of timeless being, and it has a hierarchical relationship with God, cosmos, time, and becoming.
Okay, break that down for me.
So God creates eon, eon gives rise to the cosmos generates time, and time brings about becoming.
So it's like a chain of creation.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And the cosmos itself isn't just passive matter. It has its own sense and thought.
So the cosmos is conscious in a way.
Yeah, it's like a living, thinking entity.
That's wild. And the cosmos is described as God's son.
Yes, and it's the instrument through which God operates in the world.
I see. So the cosmos is both created by God and an extension of God's will.
That's right. It's a pretty intricate and beautiful concept.
It is. All right, so let's talk about humanity and the soul.
Okay, so the Corpus Hermeticum emphasizes our dual nature. We're both mortal and immortal, male and female.
And we come from a male-female father.
Yeah, that's what the text says. It's an interesting idea, suggesting a kind of wholeness or completeness at the source.
It is. And the presence of mind is really important, right?
Absolutely. Mind is said to reside with those who are holy, good, pure, and merciful.
So those are the qualities that attract the divine mind.
Yeah, it seems so. And mind aids in gnosis, which is direct knowledge of God.
So having mind helps us connect with the divine.
Right. But mind is far from those who are mindless and wicked.
And those people are subject to the avenging daemon.
Yeah. It's not like an external demon, though. It's more like the negative consequences of being disconnected from our divine nature.
So it's like we create our own hell by turning away from the good.
I think that's a fair interpretation.
Okay, what about the soul's journey after death?
So when the body dies, the soul ascends through the harmony of the spheres.
The harmony of the spheres being like the planetary realms.
Yeah. And as the soul passes through each sphere, it sheds the energies associated with that realm.
So it's like a process of purification.
Exactly. The soul leaves behind its earthly attachments and becomes more refined.
Like it's shedding its baggage as it climbs higher.
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
You're right.
And once it reaches the 8th sphere, it sings praises to the Father.
That's beautiful. But wait, you mentioned earlier that reason and mind are different. How so?
Well, reason is the capacity for logical thought. It's something that everyone has.
So it's our ability to think and understand things.
Right, but mind is something higher. It's a spiritual faculty that needs to be cultivated.
So everyone has reason, but not everyone has mind.
Exactly. And mind comes through understanding the herald's tidings and being baptized in mind.
The herald's tidings being the Hermetic teachings, I assume?
Yes. And this leads to gnosis and a more complete understanding of the divine.
I see. So those with mind are able to contemplate divine things, while those without are stuck in the material world.
Yeah, that's the basic idea. Those without mind are driven by bodily desires and lack a true understanding of their purpose.
Which brings us to the idea of hating the body.
Right. It's important to remember that this doesn't mean literally harming yourself.
Right.
It's about detaching from the desires and limitations of the physical form.
So it's about prioritizing the eternal over the temporary.
Exactly. It's about loving your true self, your immortal essence, more than your perishable body.
Okay, that makes sense. And the soul's journey doesn't end at the eighth sphere, right?
No, it continues. The soul potentially goes through various transformations, ultimately reaching the choir of inerrant gods.
So there's a whole process of spiritual evolution after death.
Yeah, it's a very complex system. And the ultimate virtue of the soul is gnosis, knowledge of God.
That's the goal, to know God.
Yes. And the Corpus Hermeticum lays out the principles of humanity as follows. Mind in reason, reason in soul, soul in spirit, and spirit in body.
So it's like a hierarchy of our being with mind at the top.
Right. But there's a catch. Mind can withdraw from a soul that's overly attached to the body.
So if we're too focused on the material world, we can lose that divine spark.
Yeah, that's the danger. Those who are too attached to the body are seen as divine animals rather than true humans.
That's a harsh judgment. But on the flip side, humans have the potential to ascend to heavenly understanding.
Yes, and even surpass the gods in some aspects of knowledge.
Wow, that's amazing. And the good daemon is like the embodiment of this divine mind.
Exactly, it's a mind filled with God.
Okay, so how do we achieve this gnosis? How do we get on the path to knowledge?
Well, the Corpus Hermeticum is very clear. Gnosis of God is the only salvation, the only way up.
So knowing God is the key.
It is, and this gnosis isn't something you learn from books or teachers.
So how do you get it?
It comes through holy silence and a quieting of the senses.
So it's more like an inner experience, a direct perception of the good.
Exactly. And rebirth, in this context, isn't about reincarnation, but a spiritual transformation.
So it's about being reborn in mind.
Yes. And it involves a simple vision and a change into a body that can't die.
Okay, that sounds pretty mystical.
It is. But there are obstacles on this path.
Obstacles? Like what?
Like the tormentors. These are negative forces within us that prevent us from achieving gnosis.
And what are some of these tormentors?
Well, there's not knowing, grief, intemperance, concupiscence, unrighteousness, avarice, error, envy, guile, anger, rashness, and malice.
That's quite a list.
It is. But there are also 10 powers that can drive out these tormentors.
So we can overcome these negative forces.
Yes, and this leads to intellectual birth and becoming like the gods.
But how do we learn about these mysteries? If it's not through books or teachers, where does the knowledge come from?
The text says it's restored by God's will.
So it's more like an inner awakening.
Exactly. It's about remembering something that's already within us.
And we can facilitate this awakening through inner reflection and quieting the senses?
That's right. And devotion is also important.
Devotion to God.
Yes. And devotion and gnosis lead to the beautiful, which is also the good.
So it's all interconnected?
It is. And ultimately, it's the mind alone that can see God.
But God is manifest in the whole world, right?
Yes, but it takes the power of thought to truly perceive him.
So we have to actively engage with both the outer world and our inner world.
Exactly. It's about seeing the divine in everything.
That's a beautiful thought.
It is.
So listeners, here's something to think about. If the Corpus Hermeticum is right, and there's a divine spark within each of us, what does that mean for your potential? And if ignorance of God is the greatest ill, how can you cultivate true knowing in your life?
Those are big questions.
Yeah.
And we encourage you to explore them further, check out Mead's translation of the Corpus Hermeticum, and maybe even delve into other Hermetic texts. There's a whole world of wisdom out there waiting to be discovered.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep seeking, keep learning, and keep exploring.